You're listening to Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker, exploring new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. Join us in intimate conversations with cutting-edge scientists, spiritual leaders, artists, disruptors, and visionaries who are working towards reframing the narrative of our future by healing the rift between spirituality and science, reclaiming creativity, and laying the foundation for a new world. And now, here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
You are creative. The word creative is a highly charged word that often triggers or activates people. Our early education trains us to think of creativity as our artistic ability. We learn to measure our creativity by how well we can draw or paint. We evaluate our creativity based on a teacher's comments about our artwork, or when we compare ourselves to the girl who drew the perfect horse that's taped to the front of the classroom for all the parents to ooh and ah over during our school open house in second grade. You shut down your creative power the minute you stop believing you are creative. Creativity isn't just about art, glitter, and drawing. Creativity is simply having the power to create. You have created your life, decision by decision, action by action, thought by thought, belief by belief. We are on the cusp of a creative revolution, sometimes referred to as the shift, that promises to be as transformative as the scientific revolution. This creative revolution will charge us with finding the solutions to the challenges facing humanity today. And it's happening precisely when we're facing a creativity crisis in the world. The Torrance scale is a test used to measure creative response and is actually a better indicator of success than a traditional IQ test. The global Torrance scale scores have been steadily declining since 1990. Collectively, we're forgetting about our creative power. That's where you come in. Your commitment to your creativity is a revolutionary act. Every word or idea you bring into form, even if you delete it later, demonstrates to the world that creativity is still alive and an essential aspect of the human experience. Your creative practice calls you forward as a guardian of creativity. You are anchoring the process of translating possibility into form onto the planet every time you consciously create. When you act in the flow of creativity, you're not only doing it for yourself, you're creating a force field of creativity for the world. You're showing the world that it's okay to feel the fear and do it anyway. You're demonstrating that the right path isn't always the predictable path. You're modeling the power of conviction and the willingness to serve something bigger than yourself. You stay in control of your life as a creative when the world feels like it's spinning out of control. That's a pretty big and important job. And it starts first with you reclaiming your creative power. Modern physicists and cosmic scientists believe that the universe is actually a unified and innately sentient entity. We have evolved from simplicity to ever greater complexity, diversity, and self-awareness. Evolution isn't just driven by random occurrences, mutations, or survival of the fittest, but by dramatically organized and synchronized interplays of forces and influences, all brilliantly guided and informed. The universe, our planet, and our human stories evolve in response to this evolutionary directive. We're on the cusp of a creative revolution because our creativity is needed right now by the planet. Your life is dependent upon your creativity. The world is dependent upon you to reawaken your creativity. My guest today is Dr. Anneloes Smitsman, a futurist, systems scientist, award-winning pioneer in human development and systems change, and award-winning best-selling author. She's the founder and CEO of EARTHwise Centre and the initiator and architect of the EARTHwise Constitution For a Planetary Civilization. She's also the author with Dr. Jean Houston of the Future Humans trilogy, which includes The Quest of Rose, a #1 Amazon bestseller, and winner of the 2022 Silver Nautilus Book Award in the category of personal growth, as well as the book Return of the Avatars, which also became a #1 Amazon bestseller. She's also the co-host with Dr. Jean Houston of the Future Humans podcast for meeting remarkable pioneers from around the world who walk the path of our future human potential. She is the co-editor and co-author with Dr. Alexander Laszlo of The New Paradigm in Politics, and she's the author of Love Letters from Mother Earth and the narrated version of Messages from Mother Earth with soundtracks from Alan Howarth. She's also the author of numerous peer-reviewed journal publications, articles, book chapters, and other publications. Join us as we talk about the future of the world and your role in creating it. Welcome to Quantum Revolution. I'm so excited today to be having a conversation with Anneloes Smitsman. And, it's very rare that I have a conversation with someone where I have to sit in meditation for about 20 minutes before we begin to get clarity on which of the many delicious directions we could take this conversation. So I want to start before we talk and really address something that I want to pull out in our dialogue today. So one of the things we have talked a lot about over the last couple of seasons on Quantum Revolution is the idea that we're on the cusp of a creative revolution, that we are letting go of an old cycle of humanity and emerging into a world where we live from an equitable, just, sustainable, abundant, and peaceful place, that we consciously create this. And we've brought in, over the last few seasons, scientists that have pieces of the puzzle of how we're going to be building this. And one of the things I'm so excited about sharing with you all today in this conversation is that Anneloes Smitsman brings to the table not just pieces of the puzzle, but a beautiful overview of how we can begin to put all these pieces of this puzzle of this evolving world together in an actionable plan. So welcome, and so happy to have you here, Anneloes.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's really a great delight to be here.
So I want to start with a conversation about a term that I see you use in a lot of your materials. I've seen you use this in the books that you write. You're a co-author of the Future Humans trilogy with Jean Houston. You've studied systems. You've spoken and taught and trained people all over the world. And you keep bringing up this idea or this word, thrivability. What exactly do you mean when you say thrivability?
That's a great question. Exactly. Because a lot of people use the word thrive, and that seems to be a common meaning for a lot of people. But I always emphasize the ability to thrive, so that we're not just looking at thrive as an outcome or a particular state or, a snapshot in time, so to say, but that we are all born with innate abilities for being able to thrive, but that it does require that we go through an evolutionary process where we develop those capacities, just like nature does all the time. And if we go even deeper, it's the universe itself, which is so beautiful, that enables us to be able not just to co-evolve, but to thrive together and develop the abilities for thriving together.
I'm going to be really grounded with this exploration. I can sit here and I can envision this and I can see this. I'm thinking about some of the statistics that we've been looking at, again, on the show for the last couple of years, and even in some of the research that I've done. And one of the things that we keep coming back to is that 65%, and I actually think it's a lot higher than this, 65% of people in the Western world report themselves as being burned out, which to me is somewhat the opposite of thriving, right? And certainly the opposite of having the ability to thrive, or at least perceiving that you have the ability to thrive. How do we get people who are looking at the news, who are feeling embattled, who are having conversations about inflation, recession, divisive energies, work that feels exhausting, the fear that they can't find meaningful work, all the practical, grounded things we talk to and we tell stories about ourselves? How do we get from that to activating in ourselves the ability to thrive?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that it's 65%. My guess it would be even higher, especially in the work I've been doing with companies. And the reason why I'm not surprised is because this burn out and burn down effect that you're talking about is because people are working and learning and asked to grow up and show up in systems that are mechanistic, that are not designed for thrivability at all. In fact, they do the very opposite. They create barriers for our thrivability by imposing goals and objectives that disconnect us further and further with our own potential, but also with life and with nature. So it's like we are bombarded with information and plugged into all kinds of systems that are feeding us with information that has very little to do with life itself. So to me, the first step in order to be able to kind of plug out of those systems and connect back into yourself is to create a buffer zone. To create a buffer zone between you and the systems in which you are partaking that are not honoring you for your humanity, that are not supporting you to go within and take a breath and let go and revitalize. These are not systems even that are able to evolve. They are very static. And that's why I call them mechanistic systems. So create a buffer zone between you and that world so that there's a place within yourself where you can retreat, where you can revitalize, where you can be fully who you are, where you meet life. And when you find that place within you, expand it, make it bigger, breathe into that, and then bring energy from that space within you into your life, into your relationships, and in everything that you're doing.
That's powerful. And I think that's a beautiful and important first step. The next piece that I would really want to explore with you is once you live in that fully expanded, aligned, self-aware expression of the person you were born to be, what's next? How do you go from thrivability to then constructing a thrivable community or a thrivable civilization or finding ways to create thrivable work?
So the next step for me, and this is a step that often people don't even realize exists within that, but it's actually to connect with your future human potential. So within all of us already live the kind of evolutionary potentials of our next step, not just our personal next step, but also our next step as a species. Remember that the very universe itself is kind of coded and designed in order to evolve further and to develop the capacities for being able to do so collaboratively in a way that really supports an increasing self-awareness at the individual and the collective levels. So you have within you those beautiful future human potentials of our evolutionary next steps, of higher orders of purpose and of being and of vision. So just by even knowing that, allowing that to activate, even as you're listening right now, connecting in with that and letting that future human potential then inform what is it that I'm really meant to be doing right now? How can I do this from a greater sense of flow and an alignment? From that future human potential, that is in itself already a resonance pattern with a greater collective field of wisdom that's all around us, that is supporting us, especially right now in these very challenging times. So it's again by knowing where do I put my focus and my attention, and from what potentials within myself am I investing in and bringing forward in order to inform my life, to take my next steps, to take my next actions. There's another thing about these future human potentials, and I'd like to think of them as evolutionary stem cells. They're like your imaginal stem cells within you that have a very, very high concentrated consciousness for being able to also to transform yourself and to evolve yourself and to renew yourself. So you can also work with these potentials, your consciousness itself in a higher state of being in order to really, really revitalize your whole life.
What I'm hearing you say, Anneloes, is that your personal evolution, your personal connection to, and you use the phrase imaginal, which is going to be the next thing I want to ask you about, your personal connection to your own well-being, your own imaginal, if you will, your imaginal connection to your personal future self is inextricably interwoven into the future of humanity. Would that be a correct way of saying that?
That's correct. The future from a perspective of how humanity is challenged right now to take its next step. Not just future in terms of what we're hearing a lot in the news, are we going towards collapse or even possible extinction? But really points that from a species level, what is it that we need to learn right now? How do we become coherent at the next level of our complexity? How do we learn to truly collaborate for our common goodness, sharing the resources and working together to solve the greatest challenges of our time?
Okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to ask you, when you say imaginal, what do you mean? And then I have some big questions after that.
Yes. Now I'm going to go a little bit scientific right now. Yeah.
Perfect.
And then then we're going to make it very practical again. So now a lot of people know the word imaginal these days from imaginal cells. And we may have heard about imaginal cells from the beautiful story of how the caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. And so within the caterpillar from its birth are these imaginal discs, which means there are the codes there of the butterfly that it carries already within it. And what's really interesting is that the DNA of the butterfly is actually not the same as the DNA of the caterpillar. So it's almost like two species into one, or two multiple being into one. But it's coded in order to transform through a metamorphic process when it reaches its limits to growth. And so when a caterpillar is overeating until it can't eat anymore, and that is when these imaginal discs of the butterfly will start to activate, and they start now to coordinate what's happening within the breakdown of the caterpillar. I think that's such a powerful metaphor what's happening in the world today. At a particular stage of our human species, we've been consuming to the limits of growth. We're having to cocoon right now. The old structures of how we've been operating on this planet are starting to break down. Can't take us to the next level. But our own imaginal capacity, it's like that, again, the potential of our evolutionary next step, our butterfly self is starting to activate precisely at the time of this collapse, of the breakdown of these old structures. And this imaginal potency is actually coded in order to turn all that nutrient soup of the decaying caterpillar body into building the butterfly body. So if we're taking this one step further now in terms of the science from a quantum perspective, then what we could also look at is that what we call the imaginal realm or imaginal state of consciousness is in fact a quantum state. And in that quantum state, this is where our future potential exists, in a state of possibility. I like to think of the imaginal as an interface between non-local consciousness that is not bound by space and time, that precedes it, as well as right there on the cusp of already also having the patterning and the potentials for localization. So within the imaginal, if we are accessing our own imaginal consciousness, that imaginal realm within ourselves, we can access these capacities of being in this expanded state of consciousness, profound state of unity, experiencing time simultaneously, seeing and experiencing these greater possibilities. And at the same time, we'll also have access to our local reality, to knowing the choices that we need to make in order to really bring that down and to embody that and start working with that. So your imaginal capacity is an incredibly important capacity for these higher orders of transformation.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to do my best to construct this next question because I like to play with where we are and where we're headed. And I have to share this next little piece with a story. And it's actually a story that Mark, our sound engineer, sent me yesterday. He sent me this TikTok from this woman who is a business owner. And in this TikTok video, she talks about how she has a $2 million business. It's not a profit driven business, that she doesn't run the business to create profit. And everything that gets created in the business is shared equally with all the employees, and all the employees are in the decision-making process about how they're going to use the money, how they're going to grow the company, how they're going to benefit from the company. And it was a really beautiful vision of what business could be. And as a business owner myself, I had to really sit with all the different places in my body that got afraid of, well, how could I run my business that way? And if I did, would I make enough money? And would I be able to really do the things that I want to do with my business? If I had to run it by and collaborate with other people, am I not going to be in charge? And what does that mean? If it's my idea, it triggered a lot of what I would say maybe materialistic / mechanistic fears about running a business. At the same time, I'll say I relate and understand the idea of the imaginal world, the future human. I do all the things I know I need to do to really hold that, to consciously work with that to the best of my ability, given the fact that I'm still sitting, in the material world, having to run a business, for example, or raise children or feed my family or cook. How do you create consciously towards coherence and collaboration when your own conditioning gets triggered? How do you work with that conditioning around lack and materialistic / mechanistic thinking and material resources and the idea that maybe it's not all as sustainable as it looks? How do you play with your own fears and work with continuing to bridge between these two ways, these two worlds, the caterpillar and the cocoon and the butterfly at the same time?
Oh, I love that. That's such a great question and a beautiful story. And I can understand that those fears as well, because, I'm also a business owner and I'm always living into that question. What of this is a collaborative input question? What of this do I need to bring forth and birth in the world first? So I can relate to all those points. Well, the first thing, of course, is that remember our fears and our worries and our anxiety, that's also a resource. It's also energy. So to me, when I get triggered and I feel those fears, that means that I'm being challenged to expand my mind into ways of operating that I haven't even thought of yet. So when the fear gets triggered, often it's a fear of either you losing control over a creative process or perhaps a fear of lack. But the good thing is that you're aware of the fear. So now there's an activation. So instead of being ruled by the fear and letting the fear take you on a ride, tell yourself, first of all, okay, thank you, fear. That's great. I've just come across here a self-imposed border or boundary. And let's stretch this. Let's really work with this now. And for those of you who are listening as well, you can do that right now. So whatever has been your fear in terms of your next step, close your eyes right now. Hold the intention to really enter into that beautiful, imaginal, expansive consciousness. And without thinking about the details, just hold that question now. What if I could? And what if I could do this in a way that's really amazing? It supports me, it supports everyone around me. It's so generative, it's so transformative. There isn't any loss. It just works. And it would really just works at a higher order of being able to do this in ways that I haven't even thought of. How does that feel in my body? How does it feel that it works so amazingly well? And I'm discovering this right now and breathing into this wonderful expansion and this discovery and allowing my inner being to work out the details all in right time.
Well, and I think the other piece that you just reminded me of, and this is totally personal for me because I've definitely been completely freaked out about this for the last 24 hours, because part of me knows in a consciousness level that the idea of structuring business in a way that is equitable for everyone who's participating in the creation of your business, and the idea of de-stratifying people in business, right? I don't want to have employees that I think are less than me, right? Or that are playing a lesser role, because it's a moving entity, right? And every part is vital. If you take a part out or you devalue a part, you're devaluing an essential piece of the puzzle that is the business, right? Cognitively, part of me is saying, yes, there's something in this exploration of how do we restructure and de-stratify business and the way we value people. And I don't have to figure out how to do it yet. I can just stay in the energy of it's going to be possible. It is possible for us to construct a world of business that's equitable and just and sustainable and abundant. And when it's time for me to make the next right move, I'll know, and to not get terrified that I'm not figuring out what's the next step.
That's it. You got the key right there, because then you're operating from a level of trust, and you're also allowing that future, that opening to guide you, and trusting that, exactly like you just said, you will know the next steps. We're going through this very same transformation right now. So we have the part of our business that is a smaller team, and I'm opening up the larger business community around it as a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, which is much more horizontal and with very, very different value structures, value flows as well that we're collectively owning. And using that as a safe playground. And that might also be an advice that could help for people. Allow yourself to experiment. So instead of having to transform your entire business in this way, create a playground first where you can try out some of those new strategies, new approaches, perhaps new role models, maybe even a new form of tokenization with its own currency systems, and try it out collectively and explore. Really allow yourself to experiment, because if you allow yourself to experiment, there isn't this set out expectation of it has to be successful straight away. No.
It definitely takes the pressure off. So you've talked a lot about collaboration and coherence, and these are two terms that I see you use a lot in your material. Can you explain to us what exactly do you mean by collaboration and coherence?
Yes, I'll start first from coherence, because if you understand coherence, you'll get why collaboration is so important. And I especially like to work with what I call evolutionary coherence. I'm going to sound a little bit scientific again, but if you're looking at the evolutionary principles or laws of the universe, yeah, and these are based on laws of informational dynamics, and there's a whole science that's based on that I won't go into the details for. But what we're seeing is that if we're looking from the beginning of our universe and where we are now and where we're heading, then there's a directionality. There's an amazing fine-tunement whereby what we see life becomes more complex. But that complexity doesn't take us down. It doesn't become complicated in an ecosystem in nature. It becomes more coherent because the organisms within these ecosystems have learned how to collaborate and to co-evolve, not just coexist, but really co-evolve, and hence, again, of course, to thrive together. So coherence then is actually a higher order of complexity. It's a field dynamic that when that's active, there's a spontaneous collaboration between the members of an organization or a group or a community, a team, or in nature, an entire ecosystem. And I like to think of it as this invisible conductor. So if you were to be listening to this beautiful symphony, all these different instruments, and that comes when it really works, when it's like you feel there's like the magic in the music. This is when everyone was playing their instrument is not just playing their tune for their melody, their instrument, but they're playing it together in a way that the sound that's now coming from the combination of all these beautiful melodies and instruments becomes a coherent whole. And it starts to inform really how we play our next tune. But that's what evolutionary coherence does. It's that we have this sense of knowing what's my next step, what's my tune, what is my contribution, and that it activates this spontaneous sense of, yes, I'm going to collaborate, I'm going to explore this, I'm going to reach out to this person, we're going to do this together.
I love that. I love that. So again, I think the piece that I keep hearing is that your own personal alignment is essential to the co-evolution and the alignment with the increased order of complexity and evolutionary coherence, and that you're not really something separate from the whole, even though it feels that way sometimes, and that the work that you do on a personal level to stay connected to, we'll call it cosmic mind, if you will, through you, the desires that are triggered, the imaginal futures that call you forward, that listening and being present to those pieces are essential, not only for your own growth and evolution, but key parts of all of us coming together to create a thrivable world, a thrivable civilization, as you call it. And I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you said it beautifully, summarized it. What I'd like to add to that as well is that there's a pattern, it's a connective pattern.
Mhm.
So if you are in your life right now and you feel there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of breakdown, become aware of what that pattern is. So the pattern of a disconnect is very different from a pattern that connects us to these greater evolutionary capacities in life itself. So if you are in a pattern of breakdown and things are not working and it's really stressing you out, take a deep breath, let that go. Hold that intention consciously, like you just said about your personal alignment, to shift out of disconnective patterns, patterns of competition, patterns of division, patterns of disunity that don't work. And then hold that intention to find your own alignment, your own resonance again with these greater evolutionary patterns that connect us to our greater latent and active capacities, and that connect us to this larger field of possibilities and allow us to tap into this vast wisdom of life.
Beautiful, beautifully said. So you just released the EARTHwise Constitution for Planetary Civilization. Tell us a little bit about that and how we can have access to that.
Yes. Oh, that's been such an adventure. So that's the accumulation, and you could say, of my decades of works in systems change combined with human development. It's a beautiful, beautiful document that is more than just what, when people hear the word constitution, they often think it's very dry, it's for lawyers. But no, this is this is an evolutionary framework, and I can relate to that because I started in law. What kind of sparks all of this is the understanding that if we're looking at the implicate orders, as David Bohm referred to that, of the universe itself, which I actually see as cosmic mind, to me, the implicate orders of the universe and the cosmic architecture, that is what enables mind. So you could think of that, these architectures, informational architecture of wholeness and unity, that is a constitution. So every living system has its own constitution, which is this deeper architecture of consciousness that is coded for wholeness, that is coded to evolve as a unified reality at all levels and skills of existence. So if we then, with that perspective, look at what's wrong with the constitutions, like the structures of our societies and our businesses and our institutions, most of those constitutions were conceived from duality and were coded in order to grow and expand at the cost of essential boundaries, planetary boundaries, and also social boundaries. And they were conceived by minds at the time to dominate, to have control, to have power over, rather than being empowered with and through life and nature. So the EARTHwise Constitution for Planetary Civilization is really an invitation to go back to the fundamental constitutions of life itself, and therefore to learn how to co-create thrivable worlds and futures with the wisdom of living systems in partnership with life and our Earth. And you can access that through our website of earthwisecenter.org/constitution. The center is written not in the American way, in the English way, with RE. Is what the presence that. And then it's really accessible. It's really our gift to humanity. You can work with it for even creating a constitution for your own life and your work. You can evolve with it further. You can really look at the principles of what is there and see how your mind being able to clarify your own values It's designed as a cosmic compass. So the cosmic compass that features in my Future Humans trilogy with my dear friend Jean Houston is also the foundation for this constitution. And that means that at the center of the compass, it starts from that deeper coding of that unity and from unitive consciousness. And then it guides you through 3 evolutionary principles of life, 5 future archetypes for being able to actualize your future human potential through that process of metamorphic transformation that we just explored for how to become a butterfly. And then it takes you further into 8 foundational values for your inner and your outer growth, followed by 13 living systems principles to really being able to understand now, what do we need to stop? What do we need to change and transform in the world so that we can all learn how to thrive together? And what do we need to create, allow the emergence for and birth? And then it completes with 16 commitments, like a future human's quest for how we're going to really evolve, how we play the game of life on planet Earth.
I will be downloading this as soon as we're done talking. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for creating this document. Thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you so much, Anneloes, for joining us today. I learned a lot. And I hope that for our listeners too, that they've gotten some new and I think grounded perspectives on how to continue to take those incremental steps forward in bringing into our materialistic experience, if you will, a world of a thrivable civilization. I like your language. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been really amazing to have this beautiful exploration together with you.
Each and every one of us plays a unique, vital, and irreplaceable role in evolving the world and responding to the challenges facing humanity today. Creatives like you will lead the world and build the future. Creatives know how to harness life's intelligence and mine it for creative solutions. Remembering your creative power not only promises to give you the ability to create what you need in your own personal life, it allows you to play your unique role in helping to evolve the world. To do this, you must become consciously creative. To be consciously creative means that you have to remember who you truly are. You have to stop reacting to life or feeling like a victim of life and deliberately use the power of your imagination to create the life you were born to live. You have to live, think, and dream in such a way that you become the person you want to be and embody the qualities of life that you want to be a part of your reality. You have to remember your natural ability to use your imagination to regulate your energy so that you can consciously create your world and ultimately the world. To serve the leading edge of evolution, your job is to imagine, to dream wildly, and to not deny your dreams just because you don't know how yet. When you remember to trust in the unseen and act as if it's already true, then your imagination serves to keep expanding upon that which we receive, so that you have more for yourself and for the world. Your imagination is the key to building what Anneloes Smitsman calls a thrivable future, a future that will be nurturing the fulfillment of the potential of all of humanity and the planet. Want to remember your innate creative power? Get your free Quantum Human Design Energy Blueprint at www.freehumandesignchart.com. Your Quantum Human Design Blueprint will help you remember your unique, vital, and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan and will show you how you can fulfill your potential, your unique role in evolving the world, the role that only you can fulfill. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Revolution.
Thank you for joining us on Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker. For more information on how to change your world and to hear more about our guest today, visit quantumrevolutionpodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so you don't miss a single episode of Quantum Revolution. We'll see you next time for some more groundbreaking conversations with Karen and her guests. How will you impact your world today?